Hi, this is Travis with another video for you guys. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a doctor of physical therapy and I've also been a personal trainer around 15 years. And so today we're going to be talking about weight vests. You're starting to get to where your body weight's not that hard for you anymore. You know, push-ups and lunges and stuff like that are getting too easy for you. This is a really cool way to up the ante. You know, the sky's the limit with these. You can get them pretty heavy. The one I'm using here is just kind of half of a vest. This is about 50 pounds. There's another attachment that I can put onto this to add even more weight. But I'm just going to use this one for today just to kind of demonstrate to you guys. The weight vest will become part of another series I'll end up doing where I'm going to add in some more advanced variations. Today I'm just going to kind of lay the foundation with some of the basic movements. So if you have a weighted vest and you want to try this stuff out, go ahead and put it on and we'll get started. The squat's one of those movements that's kind of easy to confuse. You know, a lot of people I think sometimes overthink it. You know, you don't want to be coming too far forward like this and bending over. All you want to do is just think about sitting in that chair without using your hands. And most of you will tend to fall into a pattern. Some people do tend to come too far forward with it. So just think about kind of looking up pretty much. You know, if you orient your eyes to something, say maybe about 30 feet or so ahead of you, and you just kind of sit down, then you'll tend to naturally fall into a squat pattern. You know, it's natural that your chest is going to come forward some. You can't be completely vertical because then you really kind of lose your balance and you would fall backwards. So you are going to have to lean your chest forward a little bit to fall into that pattern. And obviously if you're at a point in time where you're not that comfortable with your body weight yet, then obviously you want to check that box off the list first before you add a vest into the mixture. Now as far as my foot spacing, you know, you don't actually need to have your feet totally straight ahead, especially if you want to go a little bit on the wider side. Many people, when they have a really narrow stance, it kind of impinges their hips a little bit and it's harder for them to get down low. So there's really no reason why you can't go a little wider on these. You know, widen that base of support a little bit if you need to, you know, outside the shoulders even, if that's fine. And then typically the wider you're gonna go, the more you can turn your feet out a little bit. So you wouldn't want to be real wide like I am and have your toes straight ahead, you know, slightly out to the side. And that's gonna tend to be more comfortable. So just kind of ask yourself, you know, what feels best? Where do you feel most comfortable going down? And that's probably a pretty good place to start, okay? And so once again, you know, just square yourself up to that chair. You know, if you want to try to kind of brace your abs a little bit as you're doing this, you can. So you want to think about just kind of engaging and flexing those thigh muscles in through here, okay? And so you're just going to go ahead and squat for whatever your target number is, and then you can move on to the next exercise. Okay, so another bread and butter exercise with a weighted vest is going to be a push-up. That's one of the best exercises probably in the business. And the main limitation of the push-up is that eventually it gets too easy for a lot of people. So once you put this vest on, you know, again, the sky's the limit. You can make this thing pretty hard as you start to add some load in the mixture. And so again, with push-up form, you know, some people come really flared out. Some people kind of go too close to the sides. You know, somewhere in the middle tends to be a pretty good position. And almost like if you were doing a bench press, you know, your hands should kind of fall in that line across your chest. And so as you're pushing, it's sort of like this. You're almost in that same position you'd be if you're getting your height measured, just gonna be down on the floor. And in this case, you're gonna notice you're gonna probably hit the ground a little early with this vest on because it adds some bulk. That's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, to kind of make it a little more of a partial range. If you're really a purist though, and you wanna get that full range of motion, you can elevate your hands on something. You know, sometimes a yoga block on each side might be one way to go. And so that'll definitely keep you a little more honest. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this regular. And so I'll just go into a push-up position, you know, down for a light touch, and then back up. And so off I go and do my push-ups. Just try to really squeeze the chest, back of the arm, and the shoulders. And so that's the push-up. Okay, so the next exercise is going to be the lunge. For those of you who've seen some of my other videos, you probably know I'm a pretty big fan of lunging. I think it's a really nice way to emphasize, you know, one side more at a time. And it's something that's not so difficult or technical that most people can't do it. Now, one of the big considerations with a weighted vest is that you want to really minimize that impact. So if you are doing something like a forward lunge, you know, where you're going to be basically stepping forward and coming down, you just want to make sure you have a nice soft landing. So you shouldn't really be slamming your foot down because again, you have that added weight now that's going to be putting a little bit more force through your joints, like your back, your hips, your knees, all those types of things. Now, if you're still thinking though that it's a little bit too much force, but you feel strong enough, you could also turn that into a split squat. So this is the one I showed in that 15-minute workout video with the backpack. But again, you're just going for an elevator right here with your feet essentially fixed in that being part of a lunge movement. And so I don't push back to where I started, I just go straight up and down. Sometimes what happens here on the split squats though is people come too far forward. But again, what you really want to do is just come straight down like you're going for an elevator ride. So it's just down for a nice soft touch on the back leg if you can, and then back up, okay? And so again, I would just come in here, just nice soft touches, trying to do as much as I can with that front leg. Once I hit my target number, I would switch and do the other side. And that's nice because it's a little bit less impact on the joints, but really allows you to get after those thigh muscles as well as the glutes. Okay, so some of you might be wondering, well, how do I do a good back exercise with a vest? And obviously if you're at a park or at a gym and you have access to a pull-up bar, some of you might have pull-up bars above your door. Once you start adding a weighted vest to the mixture though, it's really gonna be a lot of force. And so some of those attachable pull-up bars you can put over a door frame may not hold you once you get a significant amount of weight. So you definitely wanna check out what that load tolerance is before you start adding all that in the mixture. But to do more of a horizontal row, put this vest on the ground and think of it more like a dumbbell. All you really have to do is just put this thing through the vest, okay? Somewhere in the middle here like this. And then all of a sudden I have essentially like a dumbbell. And so what I could do from this point is I could just come down in here, put my hand on my thigh, and pull that guy almost into my pocket. Again, you don't want to be shrugging. Just kind of pull it straight in, and you're gonna notice it's gonna, probably touch the floor, but that's about where I'm getting a full stretch, so that's okay. And so this is just a pretty simple way now that I have almost like a dumbbell, okay? And so I can just go ahead and row this guy on one side until I hit my number, switch hands, and then off I would go on the other side. You can also use a thicker band. Again, this is one of those performance better bands. I'll put the link to at the bottom. And you could take this thing and just put it through here. Okay, something like this, and then take that handle, and now you've got the same thing, okay? So again, I can just come down in here. Only difference now is I have a little bit of a different handle on it, but essentially in principle, it's pretty much the same thing. So whichever way you want to slice it, that's a pretty nice way to essentially do a horizontal row, one arm at a time, really get after those lats, some of those back muscles. Okay, so the next exercise is a really cool core exercise. Now for this is optional. If you have hardwood flooring and just a pair of socks, you don't necessarily have to have these. I'm gonna use some of these lower friction discs though. These are ones by a company called Synergy. There's another company called Valslide. There's a lot of companies that make these nowadays. I will put the links at the bottom as usual. And I'm gonna do an exercise called the saw, which is already a pretty intense core exercise. And then when you add a vest in the mixture, it definitely ups the ante quite a bit. Okay, so I've got the discs behind me, so I'm gonna put those underneath my feet. And then from there, I'm just gonna go into a plank position and slide my body backwards. So I go into a plank, slide back, and then forward. And as you're getting stronger, you can try to go back farther. Now in the beginning, you may want to start with body weight depending on how strong you are. But if you're strong enough to do them with body weight and they've gotten easier for you, having a vest on definitely ups the ante. And I've got the 50-pounder on right now, it's pretty heavy. You certainly don't have to start out that heavy. You can also take, most of these are also adjustable. Don't be shy, you can take some out, at the end of the day, you still want to have pretty good form. Don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your back. But if you are able to do it with more load, it's definitely a cool way to really challenge your core muscles. Okay, so my last exercise, sort of the bonus for today, is a cool exercise called the Nordic hamstring curl. And it's an exercise I really like to do. It's pretty hard to do though, unless you have a training partner or something that can really secure your ankles down. And the cool thing about the weighted vest is they can actually do that for you. So not necessarily putting it on your chest, but putting it around your legs. And so what you do for that, I've got this vest just kind of splayed open down here. And then what you have to do is put your legs underneath it. So this essentially holds your feet down. And then from there, just try to slowly lower yourself down. You can cushion yourself with your hands a little bit and then push back up. And you're trying to do as much work with the legs as possible. So, you can definitely kind of cushion the fall with your arms or on the way back up. But ideally, eventually, you want to work up to where you're able to do this without really using your arms very much. And so this thing can still move on you some. But sometimes if you get it, so if you get this placed in the right position, it'll still shift on you a little bit. but it's kind of the next best thing when you don't have somebody to necessarily hold your ankles down for you. There still is a little bit of shifting, which for some of you might be a little annoying, but it's actually not that bad. And I just think this is a cool exercise to try to incorporate. So even though it's not perfect, I still like doing it. If your vest is not very heavy, you might notice it's going to come up with you. So the one caveat with that exercise is you do need a little bit of a heavier vest. Right now I've got 75 pounds of vest behind me, and so that's a pretty good counterweight for me. But again, if your vest is only about 30 pounds, it may not be enough. So you might need to get creative and figure out some other things you can put in your legs to hold you down. But if you can figure out a way to simulate that, it's a pretty cool exercise. So if you like it, try it. If you don't, that's why I made it the bonus exercise for today. It is a pretty hard exercise though as well. So for some of you who maybe aren't that advanced right now, it might take a while before you can really build up to that one. Again, the goal would be, kind of minimal use of the hands, being able to pretty much go all the way up and down, mostly with the legs. Okay, so there's just some ideas for you guys on how you can make some exercises a little harder. Again, I tried to use kind of the 5 big players, a squat, a lunge, a push, a pull. So we did the push up, we did the row, and then a core exercise, which in this case was a saw. Now there's definitely some other core stuff out there. Check out my core exercise video if you want some other ideas. Essentially any exercise you can do with body weight, you probably can do with a vest. But personally, I tend to stay away from the really ballistic stuff with a vest on, just because it can be more impact on the joints. So, really heavy duty plyometric stuff, I don't tend to do with these vests on. As I mentioned earlier, I will be talking about some harder stuff to do with these vests, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime though, I think this is a great start, a good foundation for a lot of different movements, and definitely can get you stronger. So try this stuff out, definitely comment below, let me know what you guys think. As always, I'll put the links to this stuff at the bottom, and I hope you guys have some fun.